Hi, welcome to Tea Time with Amie and Bev.
Good morning.
I had to tell Bev to zip it because we almost started chatting before I even hit record. I'm like, no, 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 no speaking, no talking.
Yeah,
Uh, you know how hard that is? That's really hard.
it is. It is.
So,
So
how's
how
it
are things
going?
going?
I asked you first.
What? I finished my sentence first. Let's rewind the recording. Things are
Oh,
going good.
goodness.
Things are going
Well,
good.
you go first.
I was just gonna say things are going good. I'm going through stuff. Some days are just not so great. Yesterday was not a great day to start off with, but I worked my way through it. And the only thing I can say that's maybe not the only thing, but it's just beneficial when you get through your day or when you get through stuff a lot faster. And I was listening to a recording last night from someone off of Facebook, and she was doing an interview with a gentleman that had had such a rough life at the age of 21. Ended up in a car accident and a lot of stuff, and he was told he wasn't going to be able to walk again, and he lost his girlfriend and his brother or her brother. They were all best friends. They were like friends forever, like 6 or 7 years that he had been with this girl and stuff. But so it was like an emotional thing. And he just talked about being present. He talked about healing, how we can heal our bodies. And he said he would have people sitting in front of him with MS, and he says they would have immediate results, immediate. And within a matter of a small amount of time, they would go backwards. And it's like, okay, let's figure out what the solution is to this. And it was being just more mindful. He says, and I agree too, and it was just a good reminder for me when you feel the pain of something or the emotion of something to really just go into that space and feel that. Don't try to, and I've caught myself recently, like I tell everyone, you feel this stuff, and it's like I caught myself, like stuff would come up and I would like, I would shut the tears down real quick, and it's like, stop, that's it, and not want to deal with some of the stuff, and it's like, no, 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 that's because it's actually creating more of a flood to come forward. I feel like if I just would deal with it at that moment or feel it at that moment, whatever it may be. And it's like even like any emotions, even if it's anger or jealousy or sadness or grief or just so many different things, not being good enough, feel it, like feel into it. And it's like he was saying, you feel into it, and he says after you give it so much attention, it just goes away. It just dissipates. So I'm practicing the same thing again. It was just a good reminder. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, because we have to think that that energy of when we stop the flow of the tears, we stop that emotion, that it's taking energetically, it's taking up space in our body.
Yeah.
And at some point, it's going to get released. And you don't know how that's going to be released later. Like
No.
I would stuff and stuff and stuff, and then I was a volcano. And a volcano, you don't want to be in front of a person who you trigger and they explode. Like you get everything, right? You get all the stories from 30 years ago and all that pent up anger, and we just lash out when we do that.
Yeah.
And crying, like just ugly cry, but it's out of control. It's an out of control experience.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have any control over yourself when that happens. And so um, if you allow yourself in the moment to feel it, you know what is what that emotion is about. And so it's,
It's
to
true.
me, it's easier to move through that in the moment than stuff it. And now it's all compiled with how many other stories. And then one day you unleash all of it at once, but there's not a complete healing because it's such a mixture of things from the past.
Yeah.
Right. And so in the moment, you're like, okay, I'm feeling emotional about this right now. So a prime example is in my early days, I've shared this before that my story was I was abandoned by my biological father. And so every time I watched a movie where there was some kind of father-daughter connection, I would get triggered and I would want to cry. But being the strong person and the introvert and not wanting to express that emotion around other people, I'd shut it, right? Stop it. You're like, don't do that, don't do that, don't do, and you tell yourself, don't do that, don't cry, don't feel this, right? But had
Yeah.
I let myself feel it in that moment, I knew why I was being triggered by that movie, the father-daughter connection. I didn't have that, and so it was a piece of me that felt lost. But I didn't allow myself to process that at the time. It got stuffed. So then later, when I would get explode like a volcano, that was part of me, that was pieces of me coming up through the anger that I didn't have that relationship. But even so, I was out of control with feeling that emotion. So not processing, I would just thought I was mad at the person in front of me at the time.
Because they hit
Right.
your
So
trigger, right?
yeah, and so we're defragmented. We're just all over the place and out of control. And again, if you allow yourself to feel it in the moment, you know why you have that emotion and process it in that moment. If you're in a safe environment and if you're in a space where you feel like you can do that, you may have to run to the bathroom, or you may have to, and let's be real, you may in the moment have to shut that off for a moment, based on maybe you're at work and you have a client sitting in front of you. That may not be an opportune time to feel it, even though we would say go ahead and feel it, but your client's going to be like, what is happening right now? This isn't very professional, right? So you may have to shut that off for the moment, but recognize it's there, and then later go and journal about it, write it out, talk about it, do something to move that energy so it's not stuffed in there for days, weeks, months, years.
Exactly. And I like that because it's like sometimes it's hard to put a thumb on, especially when we hold everything back. When we start having all those emotions boil up, we don't even know. Like it's so chaotic and crazy. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's still just coming through and just feeling the emotions. But you're right, when it's happening right this moment, you get the opportunity to feel it. Something else that kind of hit me too, and I know because we've talked about abandonment before, but it's like if we were to look at it a different way, it was probably a great blessing that he stepped out of your
Oh,
life, that
sure.
he was never in your life. So it's like it's if we can sometimes finding the positive in a situation or looking at the other side of things, because he probably had nothing to offer you that was going to bring forward who you are today at all. So I mean, who knows how you would have been otherwise. There's such great things, because for me it's like I want to say my biological father and my mom got divorced. I think I was like around 6 or 7 or something around that time frame. So it's like he was out, but I did have him for a while. I don't remember much of him, but I just remember him being around here and there. So it just wasn't. I just don't feel like I felt like he never had anything to offer at that time. I mean, who knows who he is today, or hopefully he's a great, wonderful man for the children he's fathered, and he has fathered them. So it's an interesting process to look at things and just try to find different outlooks on it, perspectives.
And yeah, and I mean, just recently, Jamie Kern Lima did a big, huge launch of her book. But not only her, but Tony Robbins, Dean Graciosi, Ed Milet, uh, so many millionaires will tell you, don't let your story be your circumstance. Don't let your story be your circumstance. Your story is where you started. I mean, the book had to start somewhere, but you get to write each chapter. And so if you're still hanging on, if I was still hanging on to being abandoned,
Mhm.
I would still be angry. I wouldn't be able to share my stories the way I do, I would still be expressing the stories from anger, from victim. And we get to choose to see things differently. And by choosing to see things differently, you're less angry about stuff. I mean, it's very seldom I get angry about anything now. Whereas before, you didn't know. You had to walk on eggshells around me because you didn't know what was going to set me off. You could just look at me cross-eyed and I'd bitch slap you or something. I never was really physical, but it's like that thought, you have that thought in your head, like, I just want to reach out and choke you right now. It's not even, it's like, first of all, I know that that's even my thoughts are a karma thing, and my thoughts are energy. And if I'm thinking that stuff's going to come back to me energetically in some form. So micromanaging my thoughts. But the point is that we want to, instead of be defragmented in our emotions that we're carrying, it's to dissipate that baggage, that emotional baggage that we're carrying. And we want it to be released. Now, when you release, you want to fill up. So you're energetically, these negative emotions are taking up space in your body. But then when you process them to release them, now you're energetically creating avoided space in your body. Now, when we create space, what do we do with it? We fill it up. So this is where we have to be mindful. Are you filling up with more uncomfortable emotions, or are you starting to fill up with more joy and excitement and creativity and the fun stuff? Right? So this we absolutely have to be mindful of, is when you're moving that energy out of your body, be mindful of how you're replenishing the body.
Makes sense.
Emotionally.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. Because most of the time when I've worked through stuff, it's not, my focus isn't afterwards about, I'm just like, thank God I figured out what that was about, or thank God I was able to feel that and recognize what it was, and it just went away. Not putting anything else into, not thinking love, or, asking to be filled up with love and light or anything.
Yeah. What I got a great observation of myself, I guess. What do we call it? Shoot, I can't think of it. Anyway, so my husband for a couple days was being very temperamental, like how we get when we are PMSing. It's just like, the claws come out. So I recognize that pretty quickly. And so when there was a conversation, he would be short, a little attitude, a little frustration, like a mixture of things going on. And so I'm able to recognize that, and I just pull back and give him his space. And so that was day one. Day two, he was still in that type of space for himself. And he was asking me a question, but the way he was asking it, I wasn't processing it in me, what he was asking. Like, I thought I was answering the question, but I think it's one of those things, like, you think you're saying something in one way, but you're not. So when somebody answers you, you're just like, what are you talking about? I've done that before. And so I'm answering his question. Like, I answered his questions his one question, 3 different ways in the way I thought he was asking it. And he just like had a moment of like, he didn't say it, but it was pretty much like, just shut the hell up, right? Just stop talking to me, because there was a communication gap going on. And he was really frustrated about it. And I was just kept answering it in a way I thought he was asking. So anyway, um, it was a great observation of myself, recognizing like I wasn't taking his attitude personal. In the past, I would have lashed out at him for having his attitude towards me. Like, I don't know what the hell you're asking me. What the hell's your problem? Like, I would have been throwing the F bombs, not just the H word, but you know, it would have turned into probably an argument. He probably would have went in the bedroom and shut the door, like, and then there would have been this big space. But I was just like, all right, he's having a moment. I didn't know what it was. I knew in that moment it wasn't a time to ask for clarity because when somebody's in that frustrated space, you just kind of, all right, just give them some time. And I went about my evening, and it didn't even like cross my mind. I just had more compassion for him that he was having a moment. I don't think he really even knew what was going on with himself. And when we're in that space, we're just in confusion, really. But me not fueling the fire, just allowing that space, but recognizing like this isn't about me, it's about him. So I didn't take any of it personal. And in fact, I even totally forgot about it. Like it was just so fast. Like I was playing cards with my mother-in-law. We were laughing. We just went about our evening, gave him his space. And 4 hours later, we're going into bed, and he came and gave me this big hug, which is sometimes kind of unusual. And he just held on and he said, "I'm sorry." I didn't even know what he was talking about. I was like, what are you sorry for? I was like, I didn't understand. It's like, he goes, well, I'm sorry for being upset with you earlier. I was like, oh, okay, well, thanks, but honestly, I totally forgot about it. So that really gave me an indicator of myself of how to not take things personal like that, especially with your companion, because that's so close and personal that you think in the past I've been like, what did I do? What did I do wrong? I'm not getting this right. It's a whole beat me up victim story. And the indicator was like, I honestly, I totally even forgot the whole thing happened. I just was like, whatever. You need some space, whatever.
That's awesome.
So
It kind of goes along with the conversation though, because it's like he was probably dealing with a lot of emotions from before, like the stuff's coming to surface, doesn't understand why it's coming to surface. Here you're trying to have a conversation with him, and it wasn't that you were saying anything wrong or he was saying anything wrong. You guys were not a match in energy. No matter what you would have said, would never have matched up to something that he could have heard. And the awesome thing is you didn't match his energy.
right.
You know what I mean? Like in the past, because I'm familiar with this behaviors because I have done these things. And for the longest time, not even recognizing that I was doing those things. So it's an awesome space. You went through, that's like, so those are all huge things that have transpired. And then it helped him because we have a lot of times, I've had someone else like apologize, oh, I'm sorry, but it's like, I think the stories or the things they were saying in their head or their anger and behavior, because it was directed to one person, maybe it was towards you or whatever, that then they're like, I'm sorry, but it's like, you didn't say anything to me, you know what I mean? That's all an internal thing. So it's like, it's just something that he was working through, and it's just so easy to, first of all, it's easy to lash out to the people that are closest to you because they're around you all the time. And you were mirroring more of a comfort and peace towards him, and he was not in a space for comfort and peace right then. But like he said, you just let it go. You didn't hold on to it, like worry about it, because I would have worried about that in the past, like, oh my God, what did I do wrong? Or did I do something? Then I might have gotten an attitude. It's like, I didn't do nothing wrong,
Right,
So
right.
that's an awesome process to have experienced. And for him, it's like, because we've been there, I'm speaking for both of us, being angry and holding on to it for so long. So for him, maybe this happened a lot faster. It came to the surface and it happened a lot faster. And he'll be able to recognize maybe in the future when stuff happens to deal with it right now and
And that
communicate.
and that goes along too with that volcano expression that we I know it's true for myself that I've been in that space where I'm frustrated and irritated and irritable, angry, and I don't know why. When I was when I was going through the personal, don't get me wrong, I'm always going through personal growth, but the heavy personal growth, the beginning stages of personal growth, like you're stirring up that energy within yourself, and you'll feel like you're doing good. Oh, I moved, I healed that piece, so I'm happy now, I'm good. And then something stirs up in you again, and now you're all of a sudden you're in that frustrated, irritable, angry, PMS type attitude, and you're what is wrong with me? I question that a lot. Like I get in that space, I'm just like, what is wrong with me? I don't know. Well, it's energy being stirred up that still needs released. And really, you could just grab a pen and paper and just start writing. I am feeling irritated, and this, and then you'll start pointing the finger at other people because you're in that irritated space. You'd be like, oh yeah, well, so and so at work did this and did that, and it just irritated the crap out of me. And you just keep going on through from there, and it could be, well, this, by what they did that irritated me, just reminds me of how my mother did things when I was little, and that was just so frustrating, right? And you can start moving these things out of you that you've been harboring, and just recognizing that there's, first of all, there's nothing wrong with you. There never has been, there will be. There's nothing. You're perfect, whole, and complete the way you are in the Creator's eye. We're fine. We are. And I'm not saying the female, I'm fine. I'm saying we're fine. We're good as we are. To me, my goal is to continue to be better than I am, to do and be better than I am right now. And where I am right now is 1,000 times fold what I used to be. And to be in that space to say, I still want to continue to grow, to be and do better. I just, like, I know there's more improvement that can be done, but at the same time, I'm okay now.
That's right. That's been a rough one even for me to process, because we always think there's something wrong with us. And that's been something that's come up for me a lot. And I've had to remind myself the same thing you just said, which cracks me up when we do this stuff. But it's like, and I've told myself, and I wanted to do, I don't know if I was going to write it down or what this, if I was going to do a recording or whatever, but it was along the lines of, there's nothing wrong with you. Like, you think there's something wrong with you because you've compared yourself to others. You think there's something wrong with you because you think you're supposed to be a certain way. There's absolutely nothing wrong with us. And it's like, I've told myself that, and it's like, it kind of cracks me up now because I'm in that space of, well, yeah, there's nothing wrong with you, but you keep creating shit. Like, you keep creating stuff. My first card that I pulled this morning was struggle. And I know struggle is only struggling against myself. I mean, really, it's such a battle, and it's so unnecessary because it's like I'm constantly, I think for me, I found that I've been like in a worry space. I've seemed like I've always worried about something. So now something else kind of creeps in. So like when you get past a lot of the other stuff and you peel off all these layers, you still have more layers that kind of peek their head through and remind you. And I don't know, for me, I would say the energy over this last, I would say probably Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, there's been like some moments that I can tell you, I don't know what, like I could feel all these emotions and I have no idea where it was coming from. Like, and I could just be sitting there and I might just start crying for no reason. No idea where it was coming from. None. And then so for
But
me, it would be
even in that, even though you don't know where it's coming from, when you let yourself cry, you feel okay afterwards. You feel better afterwards.
So for me, I knew it was just to release anyways. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know if it was people that I've come in contact with. I mean, I don't know any about what it was, but I just know that after that stuff happens, I do feel better because I always say it's like a spring rain. You get it, it just cleanses everything. So, I mean, so it was a good thing, but it was just some strange stuff that I've noticed over just recently. And I have not been following anything. Before I was like on Telegram following what was going on and everything else. It's like, I know I can no longer do this anymore. It's like, you guys, Man, for me, I gotta find a way to be happy from here so it ricochets out, so it flows out, not to be in the space of all this other stuff. There's so much shenanigans out there.
And everybody wants to blame everybody and say who started it. You know what? This stuff that's been going on has been going on for hundreds of years.
Yeah,
And it's not going to change till it changes.
yeah, and it can't change from a victim standpoint. It just can't. It can't change from a fear standpoint. It can't change from an anger standpoint. You can't fight against something and think it's going to change for the better. It's never going to be for the better. It won't be. And that's why I always say it's like any of us can sit and pray or can send good thoughts or however you want to perceive it, be in meditation and feel all this love. More of that's going to go out than anything else.
Yep. And those the I'm going back to like the volcano, the emotions that we hang on to, the stories, right? The stories we hang on to. Those stories are the stories that we tell ourselves every day in our head. And we just keep reiterating, reliving the past. And it goes along with our conversation last week when I brought up scary quiet. And this the scary quiet, being with your own thoughts. What are you thinking? I mean, you're most likely, if you're having negative thoughts, you're having stories come up from past. And that's what you're telling yourself. That's what you're reliving, reiterating, put on repeat. And you're going to think those, you've been thinking those same thoughts for probably years. It didn't just start today, it's been happening for years. And that contributes to being that volcano. Like a volcano stirs under the surface and develops this pressure, and then something happens and it just spews, right? Well, we spew through our mouth, and then we say things that probably aren't going to be very nice. I'm probably going to 100% guarantee they're not going to be nice things, and you can't take back what you say. And so we go back to the micromanaging of your thoughts, because those thoughts are connected to those emotions that you're harboring. And you know, as much of like it being a rainy day. Is it a rainy day? Oh shit, it's a rainy day. Or is it rainy day? Oh my gosh, it's raining. Right? There's a difference in the perception of even the weather. Are you frustrated because it's raining and now you have to have an umbrella with everything else you're carrying, and try to stay dry from your house to your vehicle, from your vehicle to your work? Like, or are you celebratory that it's raining and it's cleansing the air, it's bringing vegetation to our animals, it's putting water in the bodies of water that are around, right? It's like that contributes to your perception of your life. And then we could take that a step further of, is your perception creating your heaven or hell right now? And I know I lived in hell for a lot of my life because of my perception, because I had all that stuff in me stirring underneath the surface. And so because I had that ickiness in me, that's the way I perceived life. Since I have moved that energy in a healthy way and have replenished myself with more uplifting information, emotion, affirmations, now I see, now I'm living more in my heaven per se, It's okay if you're triggered by that word, but you create, you know, Abraham Hicks, you create your reality. Wayne Dyer, you create your reality. Louise Hay, you create your reality. Marianne Williamson, you create your reality, right? Everybody gets, all the teachers get that how we're perceiving our life is how we're internalizing our life. So we want to be mindful of what is stirring under the surface or flowing, right? To me, stirring is that ickiness. Flowing is the joy. That's the two different, that's like the difference in emotion. A stirring is uncomfortable, is brewing, right? It's boiling, but the water flows. So are you flowing with your life? If you're flowing with your life, then you're in that space of perceiving your life as joyful, as or just comfortable or content.